you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, April 9th. We are live. Usually we're not on Wednesdays, but we are. What I mean by we're not live is we usually pre-record with Craig Button. Craig is not with us tonight, and if all goes well, he'll be with us tomorrow. And tonight, Grant McCagg, of course, of the Recruits Draftcast podcast, will be with us in about a minute or two, as well as Simon, the Snake Boisvert of the podcast Processus on the Commission Athlétique with Mathias Brunet. So Grant and Simon standing by. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Playground. Celebrate National Poker Day at Playground with $20,000 in mystery high hand prizes. National Poker Day is Saturday, April 19, and Playground is turning up the excitement with a 24-hour mystery high hand promotion from 8 a.m. on Saturday, April 19 to 8 a.m. on Sunday. Cash prizes will be up for grabs every 30 minutes with a total of $20,000 in mystery prizes. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different, and Bittt, Tibi, who launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the nice spring days ahead with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12. In grocery stores all around the province of Quebec, ultra light, ultra refreshing. Just before I bring in Grant and Simon, it's crazy what's going on with this New York Rangers team. It's absolutely crazy. Of course, as you know, going into tonight's action with the Canadiens being off, the Canadiens were up on a wild card spot, up by 8 points. Teams below them, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the New York Rangers, the New York Islanders, the Detroit Red Wings. The Rangers playing tonight. There's 2 minutes left in regulation. They're playing on home ice. They are losing to the Philadelphia Flyers by a score of 6-4. It's unbelievable what's going on. They're losing by a score of 6-4 to the Philadelphia Flyers. Unreal. Grant McCagg and Simon Snake Boisvert. Gentlemen, how are you?
I'm fine, Tony.
That's great news.
Hi, Grant.
Hey, Tony. I hadn't seen the updated score, but I watched New York on the weekend. They were flat. You could just tell they weren't making the playoffs. Montreal is just so much more enthusiastic. That young group and the momentum and the enthusiasm behind them. New York doesn't have that, and you can just see the difference in the two teams. And I'm glad. Can they clinch it in Ottawa then, Tony? Or
you know what? I'm not
still have an outside chance, right?
I'm not sure. I have to take a look at that. I'm blinded right now, but that's the most beautiful Sick Podcast hoodie I've ever seen in my life. Look at that. And yellow gives me all the cheapy stuff. Look how nice that one is. Look at those colors. Look at it. It looks exactly like my wall behind me. It's unbelievable. I just got off a podcast, guys. We're talking about the Rangers. I just got off a podcast, La Poche Bleue, with Max Lapierre and Pascal Leclerc. And Gilbert Delorme was on the panel tonight, and Jean Perron was on the panel. Jean Perron was saying, like a little thing, like he sees Lafreniere in the starting lineup during the national anthem, doesn't take off his helmet, and he says, there's little things that I see on that team that tells me that the leadership is not where it should be. And Grant was just talking about that. The New York Rangers have a leadership problem. And I think one of the problems they have that we also talked about with Pierre Maguire and Maxime Lapierre last night was there's members of that management team and that front office, they didn't do things the right way. They leaked some information out. They basically had players thrown under the bus. They did not show very good leadership. And leadership starts at the top. And if at the top you don't have good leadership, it trickles its way down. You won't have good leadership on the way down either.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw your episode last night, and I agree. I agree completely with what you said about management. That just some of the way they treated Trouba and other players since and veterans, and just it's not the way to do things. Montreal, you got to give kudos to the way Gorton and Hughes have conducted themselves since they've been in charge.
7-5 is the score now, and this one looks like it's almost over. There's, I think, about 40 seconds left in regulation, and unless something incredible is going to happen, like what the Vancouver Canucks did last night, I think I went through an entire radio show today, and I didn't even talk about it. It's unbelievable what happened last night between Vancouver and Dallas. For the first time in NHL history, a team down 3 goals in the final minute of the game, can tie it and win it in overtime. I mean, it's you can't make that stuff up. It was unreal. Anyway, guys. The focus, of course, is still Demidov. Everyone's riding a wave. It's unbelievable what's happening here with Demidov. We have to talk about it. And there were a couple of reports that came out earlier today because the Demidov watch is on, of course. Max Truman of Donnie Koulis has been like all over this, trying to track him down. Luke of RDS as well. Both of them reported earlier today that Demidov is in Istanbul. He took a flight from St. Petersburg to Istanbul. There's no direct flights, by the way, from Russia to Montreal. You have to get off somewhere, and it's either Istanbul, or it's either Munich, or it's either Amsterdam, or it's either Paris, or it's either London or Dubai or whatever. Anyway, he got off at Istanbul. He's waiting to be cleared in Canada. So he's waiting for all the visa work, which they're saying is going to be anywhere between 24 to 48 hours. I added later on in the afternoon that the information that I have is that Demidov will arrive in Toronto at the airport on Friday. The Canadiens play the Senators in Ottawa on Friday. And of course, after the game, they're going to be headed to Toronto, guys, because they visit the Maple Leafs on Saturday. When they get there, Demidov will be there waiting for them, and they'll catch up. He'll catch up with his team. Obviously, he'll meet his teammates, and he'll take in the game on Saturday. And then the big question is, will they end up starting him without a practice, but maybe just a morning skate on the Saturday? Will they start him on Monday? And then I guess if they don't, guys, then I guess at that point that they would like to start him on Wednesday in the final game of the regular season. Grant, first of all, how surprised or not are you that Demidov is joining the Montreal Canadiens? It's been done with other players out of the KHL with other teams before, but we kept on hearing Ska. He's got a contract until May 31st. They might want to keep him there, play in the VHL, maybe even the MHL.
Money talks.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know if Rotenberg and the crew have a lifetime supply of Molson vodka or Molson beer or whatever might have coaxed them into it. But no, you know what? I think it was a perfect storm. Like Ska got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Ovechkin sets that goal record, and nationalistic pride is high as far as hockey goes in Russia right now. Yeah. He broke Wayne Gretzky's goal record, right? And he plays in the NHL. Well, the new Russian star that's, from all accounts going to be great. The backlash that I was reading and hearing about, I think Rotenberg's job was in jeopardy because they lost in the first round.
Yeah.
And then the backlash, like a lot of Russians were saying like, let this kid go to the NHL, right? Yeah. Where Ovechkin just set the record and, let's have another young Russian star prove himself in the NHL. And I think, we heard the rumors that he was going to the VHL and there was backlash within Russia. And I think Rotenberg, who I believe is worried about losing his job, even though he's CEO or whatever, I don't know how it all works there. Even though that, I think he, there was pressure on him to look like the good guy and say, okay, we're not going to send him to the VHL. We're gonna come to an agreement with the Canadiens and let him go play in the NHL, just like Ovechkin. Yeah. I think that trip I wonder about that too, right? The trip that,
Grant, a lot of people think that, there was some kind of agreement here, whether monetary or whatever. I had an information earlier this morning. Look, money talks. It's what makes the world go round. We know that. Wouldn't be the first time that an envelope was exchanged. However, in this case, I got my hands on an information that I brought to the table earlier this morning on BPM Sports Radio, and I don't know if you heard it, but what was brought to my attention is the special economic measures regarding Russia. There are regulations that prohibit several types of transactions,
right,
directly or indirectly, with persons listed in Annex 1 of a certain regulations. And in that Annex 1, on that list of several people that you cannot deal with directly or indirectly to do a type of transaction, which is a monetary exchange, there are several names, two of which are, let's bring it up, Roman Rotenberg and his younger brother, Boris Rotenberg. And if you go to that website, laws.justice.gc.ca, you are going to see that a monetary transaction with Russia and certain people is prohibited. And what someone close to the situation said to me, or someone in the know said to me, without confirming that it was the case, said, don't be surprised if the Canadiens participating in a propaganda operation in Russia back in the month of December, which was equipped with cameras and microphones, may have been, in the end, the payoff. Because Kent Hughes, if I'm aware of this, and now everyone's aware of this, and other people were aware of this, well, Kent Hughes, a lawyer, obviously by trade, definitely aware of this. And is it possible that Kent Hughes would not have participated in the documentary if he didn't know that Demidov could be coming to the Montreal Canadiens should Scott's season be over, when the Canadiens season was still going on? Because he knew that he was going to be heavily criticized for it in Canada, everywhere outside of Montreal, and maybe even by some in Montreal. Like, he made front page news and all that stuff. And by the way, everywhere he made front page news, Grant, that, oh my God, the Canadiens went to Russia, and what are they doing? This is terrible. They can't be doing that. And you know what? With everything that's going on with Ukraine and the Putin and nobody today is saying, yeah, that was terrible that they went in Russia. Today, Demidov's on the front page of every daily. He's coming. Demidov's coming. The Canadiens are a step closer to the playoffs. Demidov's coming. So anyway, just a bit of information there. Doesn't mean a transaction. I don't know. Just that's the.
You want me to? If we're going to go down the conspiracy theory, I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but Roman Rotenberg's father, his wife, last week had sanctions lifted on her by the United States. And then 3 days later, Demidov is allowed to come to. I mean, I think that's far-fetched, but it did happen within a few days of each other, So, anyways, if you're into conspiracy theories, maybe there's some tie there.
Snake Boisvert. Some are saying too much pressure is being put on this kid. He's being anointed as the next one. Even I've said, this is probably the best talent the Canadiens have drafted as a forward since Lafleur. Gilbert Delorme just said, well, he thought that was a little far-fetched. I don't think it was. I mean, after all, who's the biggest raw talent they've drafted after Lafleur? Naslin in 79, Richer in 84. I think it's attainable, really, right? But are the expectations too high on Demidov?
Well, it depends on what high means. If you're talking about a guy who could score 90 to 100 points for like 7, 8, 10 years, I don't think the expectations are too high. But if you're expecting to win the Hart Trophy for 3-4 years, then the expectations are very high, and be basically the one who's going to carry the team on his back. Yeah, expectations are too high. But if you're talking about a superstar who's going to be a top 10 scorer, then I don't think the expectations are too high.
Conn Smythe Trophy in 2024-25.
$500,000 bonus.
It's a final, by the way. The Philadelphia Flyers beat the New York Rangers by a score of 8-5.
Well, one thing I got to mention is that I remember we did a podcast in 2023, in the summer of 2023, the three of us, and that was like 1 year before the draft, and Grant was very, very high on Demidov, I remember. He thought he was going to be better than Michkov. Yeah. So we'll see, but I just remember that you were very high on the player.
Well, that's not a very high bar. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what? I'm going to tell you this. I mean, geez, I would have known that this was going back to Michkov tonight. But listen, I'll say this. I was high on Michkov based on what I saw, which were highlights here and there. I was high on Michkov based on what I heard from a lot of people who do it for a living outside of Grant, but other people as well.
Yeah,
I've watched Michkov game this year a lot. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not overly crazy about it. I mean, he's deadly one-on-one. He's deadly close to the goalie. He's definitely got a nose for net. He's definitely got a knack for net. But he would need a coach like Marty St. Louis to work with him the way Marty worked with Cole Caulfield. Because Marty took Cole Caulfield and he brought him from a one-dimensional player, a goal scorer, a blue line in player, to a 200-foot player. When he scored that goal yesterday, 30 seconds before, he was the first man back and jumped on a loose puck and made an amazing defensive play. You'll never see Michkov that far back in his zone. Michkov cheats a lot on the ice, a lot.
He's not very involved. He's not very involved in the play, that's for sure.
So he really needs a good coach going forward. He really does. Michkov needs a really good coach going forward.
You're right. Yeah.
He's really very smart with the puck. Like he sees the ice really well, and in the offensive zone, he's going to create chances. Like I'm very impressed by him that way this year, especially. But like skill wise, agility, puck handling, passing, like just skill, athleticism, pure athleticism. Demidov is, but Demidov's higher than I honestly think he's the most skilled prospect I've seen come out of the draft, just skill wise, since McDavid.
Okay.
That's pretty incredible. Dan Milstein, Demidov's agent, joined the Sick Podcast, The Eye Test, earlier today with Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy. And they talked about the first time he met Ivan Demidov. Listen to this.
I met the kid when him and his family when he was only 12 years old. Usually, I don't sign players until they're 16 or 17 years old. But the same year we met Artem Levchunov, the Chicago Blackhawks second overall pick, and Ivan Demidov. And I had to jump on a plane and go watch him, sign him, meet him, and so we did. So it's been a very, very long time, 7 or so years in the making, and I can't wait to actually watch him put the Montreal Canadiens sweater on and play his very first NHL shift.
Guys, pretty cool. I don't usually sign players at 16 or 17, but I met him at 12 and I wanted to sign him right away. That's pretty awesome. On the podcast that I was doing, like I said, probably about half an hour, 45 minutes ago. Jean Perron was talking about a hierarchy and a pecking order. And he was talking about the fact that Marty St. Louis was asked about Demidov yesterday. And Marty was saying, like, right now, I'm just focused on the playoffs, and we'll cross that bridge with Demidov when we get to it. But Jean was talking about, you know what? It's delicate when a player comes in from the outside, because up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, Jean Perron was saying, no way, Demidov wants to come over. I wouldn't even take him right now. I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't disrupt what's going on with the team. I told him, I said, you got to be kidding me. And we were going back and forth. And I said to him, there's definitely a spot for him. And then he said, you know what? It's a big difference between the KHL and the National Hockey League. I said, this kid is good, and good is good, and good can play anywhere. And then, earlier tonight, we talked about the examples of when PK Subban played 2 games in the regular season versus the Philadelphia Flyers, 2010, the year that Markov went down with that injury. PK Subban came in versus the Washington Capitals versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was unbelievable in the playoffs. Cole Caulfield came in 2021, came in as a young player right out of the collegiate ranks, stepped in, helped the Canadiens down the stretch. I think he scored 4 goals in 10 games or whatever it was, and scored some big goals in the playoffs. The Canadiens went to the final. Lane Hudson went from collegiate hockey. A lot of people, 5'9", 159 pounds, blah, 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 blah. Month and a half later, he's on the first wave of the power play. 5 or 6 months later, he's there in every statistical category with the top 5-6 defensemen in the National Hockey League. And all these young players that we just talked about, they got embraced by their teammates because they showed their teammates and their coach right away they can play.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to do the same thing. I told Jean Perron, I said, John, you know what? He's going to come in and he's going to show everyone that he can play. I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid. I'm not saying that he's going to score or whatever. And you know what? He doesn't have to. And I realize that it's a big jump. What he's going to be doing, it's big. But Grant, for me, good is good.
Oh,
he's good.
It's kind of funny to hear that from Jean Perron, who the year they won the cup, he played so many rookies. There was about 10 that played in the playoffs that year.
Yeah, in 86,
you know, it's a little funny to hear it from a guy that had tons of rookies come in and contribute to his cup win. Steve Rooney, remember Steve Rooney? He came from college, and no one had ever heard of him, and he had an awesome. I mean, Steve Penny and Steve Rooney. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was a surprise that they won the first round that year and almost won the second round, but he fit right in and was really good. He was never better, I don't think, the rest of his career. But
wasn't David Maley a rookie too in 86? David Maley?
Maley's another one. Yeah. With Perron, right?
Yeah. Was Serge Boisvert a rookie in 86? I mean, I know that Richer was on that team and Claude Lemieux. Claude Lemieux was a rookie. Patrick Roy was a rookie. I think Mike Lawler was a rookie. Was he not?
Oh, there was a bunch. I know. I've looked.
There were 10 of them. There were 10 of them.
Gilbert Dion?
Yeah.
No. Gilbert played in 93, Grant, not 86.
Okay, sorry.
Claude Lemieux in 86, obviously.
Yeah. Richer.
Yeah.
Skrudlin?
Patrik Laine. Yeah.
Skrudlin?
Yes. Yeah, there were 10 of them.
I don't know if Corson was there. Maybe not. But, yeah, there was a whole, it's funny that Jean Perron, I think it was the most rookies that ever played on a cup-winning team.
Shel Dahlin?
There you go.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of them.
Who still holds the record for points by a rookie?
71.
71, yeah.
That could be challenged next year.
Yeah. It could be challenged this year if Hudson keeps it up.
Yeah, well, there's 4 games left, but you never know.
Yeah, well, he has 4 3-assist games, and it's shattered. I wouldn't put it past Hudson. He's just he's exceeded all expectations this year. But
Sergio Momesso was another one, by the way. Sergio Momesso.
Yeah, Momesso. Yeah.
No. There's a spot on the second line. Let's face facts here. Joshua Waugh's not ready or may never be a second liner. Heineman hasn't got a point or a goal since he got hit by the car. He just hasn't quite been the same player, He's not second line right now anyway.
So Grant, you would put him on
Kapanen's
the
not ready.
second line. Right, you would put him on the first time they play him, whether it's going to be Monday or Wednesday.
Absolutely.
You'd slot him in on the second line right away. Yeah.
And I know I heard you guys last night, and you're saying, well, ease him in, but you need a second line for the playoffs, and
Yeah,
this
you
is
do.
going to be his. This will be his audition.
Yeah.
You don't wait to the playoffs to see if he can play on the second line. You see now.
Yeah.
You got
Look,
the two.
I would play him with Laine and with Newhook.
Newhook?
Okay.
Yes.
But I
Try it.
understand. I understand though the logic of because of playing him with Evans and Armia. I said I understand it,
No,
right?
Yeah.
And look, the one thing I said too is that I wouldn't play him on the Suzuki line. I wouldn't play him on the Dvorak line. So at that point, you either play him with Newhook and Laine, or you play him with Evans and Armia. For example, Max Lapierre wants to play him with Evans and Armia because he prefers Evans as a centerman much more than he prefers Newhook. I understand his point.
Yes.
But I understand your point too. They need a second line.
They really
Other teams
do.
are just going to try and shut down Suzuki's line. That's it. They said we shut him
No,
down with the Canadiens.
They aren't going anywhere in the playoffs if they don't have a second line of some sort. And I really I think Laine's been playing better and there's history of this with Laine where when there are games of importance, he plays a lot better and better defensively. Like we've noticed it in the last, when the games have been important here, his defensive game has stepped up. He's still turning over the puck too much in the offensive zone and this and that, but he's getting back a lot. He's working a lot harder than he had been away from the puck. And there's history of that with him, like with the Winnipeg Jets. He's got he got more points as a teenager in the playoffs than practically any, one of the better, more productive teenagers in the NHL playoffs when Winnipeg went on their run. The World Juniors, he was phenomenal his draft year. When it was important, when there was games on the line, they won the gold medal. He was fantastic. His Finnish team that year, they won the Finnish championship, and he was great. There haven't been a lot of instances. He played on a lot of non-competitive teams through the last few years. Now he's on a team that's going to the playoffs and that they're playing important games. And I really think Laine is going to step up. And especially if he actually gets somebody to play with on the second line, because you can criticize his play, but he hasn't had.
Yeah.
They haven't given him offensive line mates that, he's had I don't know how many line mates on the second line this year, but not good ones. And Demidov is good.
Snake, do you think that Ivan Demidov can give Patrik Laine that shot in the arm? And do you agree with Grant? Would you start him off on that second line right away saying they need a second line? Without a second line, they're going nowhere. You have to audition it now, not in the playoffs. Would you start him on the second line as well?
Yeah, because you guys gave a few examples, but let's take a more recent one, not with the Habs, but I remember Cale Makar stepping in 2019 right away in the playoffs, and he was great. So I'm not concerned. So yes, you can play Demidov on the second line. And what I remember is that last year, Patrik Laine played very few games, but I remember watching a few games with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he was playing the time that he was playing with Johnny Gaudreau, he was pretty good. So I think Demidov could have the same effect on Laine as Gaudreau did last year on Laine, because I'm not going to say they're similar players, but they're both highly skilled players who can make you can feed a line mate very well. And so that's the parallel I make between Gaudreau and Demidov with Laine. So why not play him on the second line? Anyway, the Habs have a few games that might not even matter when you think about it, because it's pretty much in the bag that they're going to be in the playoffs unless they lose 4 games. And Detroit wins 4 games, which is very unlikely. So that's the audition, like Grant says, and then you throw them in the playoffs. Anyway, what do the Habs have to lose this year? It's a bonus season in a way, because a lot of people didn't expect. Well, most people didn't expect that they were going to be in the playoffs. So it's a year where they can learn. It's a bonus that they're in the playoffs, And it's a bonus also that Demidov comes late in the season instead of just arriving at training camp next year. So I think he's going to be a step ahead next year. Like most of these guys, you know, the Ryan Leonards and all these guys who play like 4 or 5 games and they're in the playoffs. Look, I think they have nothing to lose by playing him on the second line.
Yeah.
The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Souvlaki Authentique, family-operated Greek restaurant, 7 locations, Lachine, Boisbriand, Pierrefonds, and others. They use fresh Quebec chicken, fresh Quebec pork, both hand-cut, marinated in-house. Their gyros hand-stacked, in-house, never frozen, no MSG in any of the recipes. Greek potatoes, not your yaya's Greek potatoes. These have a unique lemon sauce. Also want to let everyone know that our partner Betway is giving you the chance to win an Arsenal jersey signed by the entire team. And if you want to enter the contest, click the link in the description and follow Betway Canada on Instagram. You have until April 21st, and the winner will be selected on April 22nd. Remember, you need to be 18 years of age and older to participate, and this is only available to people outside of Ontario. Getting back to Dan Milstein, Ivan Demidov's agent, who was on the Sick Podcast, the Eye Test, earlier today with Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy. If you're wondering about what kind of person he is, he talked about his humility. Let's listen in.
You know, the fans out there and whatever, anyone, what's something about Ivan, about his personality or his game on the ice that maybe from afar we don't know yet that we're going to fall in love with over here?
He is the most down-to-earth kind of a guy. And the only advice, the only thing I tell you is that don't tell him that he's got a superstar potential. The kid has no idea. He has no idea. He's always smiling. He's happy. He picks up things. He learns things. And but he truly, to be honest, he has no idea how good he is. He has no idea. So let's not tell him about the little secret we have here.
He's got no idea how good he is, huh?
I guess it wasn't Demidov's idea to get the Conn Smythe clause in there. Then it must have been Milstein came up with that one.
You know what? I think he has an idea how good he is. With all due respect to his agent. Why am I saying that? Do you guys remember when he met with the Canadiens brass prior to the draft? The day before the draft, we spoke to him. I had a chance to speak to him 2 days before the draft. The Canadiens spoke to him a day before the draft. The footage is out now. You remember when Jeff Gordon told him, do you think you could be a franchise player? And he looked at him and he said, yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
that was
he said, I think I could be a franchise player. Like I think he knows how good he is, but it's pretty cool to hear about his humility because Snake. So let's get back to Michkov for a second, okay? There's many reasons why the Canadiens didn't draft Michkov. Now, one of the reasons was they heard this guy's attitude's not great. As a teammate, this guy's not great. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. Only time will tell. They drafted Demidov for many reasons. One of the reasons being they heard this guy's low maintenance. They actually heard he's no maintenance. They heard he's a great team guy. They heard he's humble. He's hardworking. He won't dog it. And so it's pretty cool to hear this. And that's one of the reasons why they drafted him, Snake.
Yeah, that would make sense. But look, with Michkov, whatever a 17-year-old does, I'm not really concerned, you know, because at some point when you reach the NHL and you gain in maturity and you're going to have veterans surrounding you, you're not going to be able to rule an NHL dressing room. So I'm not really concerned when I hear these stories. But what was concerning about Michkov was what we just discussed a few minutes ago, which is on the ice. This is what matters. So if that's the reason why the Canadiens didn't take him, then I do agree. If it's just because of dressing room stuff, then I don't agree. Maybe it was a mix of both, who knows? But look, I think it puts a little bit of pressure on Reinbacher because, and unfortunately he's been injured this year and he's injured again. But if the Canadiens do well, I don't think fans will hold it against them that they didn't take Michkov if Demidov plays great. So it might become a moot point at some point. But and I still like Runbacker. I just hope that he's not injury prone.
I just Bob Raw's father is a recruiter for Ska, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, he knows Michkov and Demidov like going way, back to when they were 10, probably. Yeah. So he
told his son buyer beware on one, and he told him no problem on the other.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I talked to Bobrov, before the Michkov draft, and it was asking him about, and he said, I saw some footage on Demidov, and he blew me away. Demidov played in the Hlinka when he was 15. Like, not many people have done that,
Mm-hmm.
And like Bobrov said to me, like, he's the real one, and that was in a way talking in comparison to Michkov. He, and that's on the ice, right? Like, not he has been in love with Demidov. The year before he was ever drafted, he was hoping that the Canadiens would get him, and for him to drop the 5 to the Canadiens, I'm sure Bobrov was just, his heart skipped a beat when the 2, 3, and 4 all passed on Demidov.
Look, once again, still very early on in their careers. I think Seneca is going to be a heck of a player.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong on that, but I think Chicago and Columbus in particular, I think they're really going to regret that they passed up on
especially Columbus.
Well, with the back injury, but I really don't like to. I like to wait 5 years as a rule of thumb, and we'll see. Like, Lindstrom's a heck of a. If he recovers fully, he's a heck of a player. But yeah, obviously missing an entire year is going to hurt his development somewhat.
Let's hear from once again Dan Milstein talking about getting this whole contract done.
A lot of people, even Kent Hughes, didn't really touch on it much last night. He said a lot. All he could say was that a lot of stuff came together fast. And, I understand there's probably a lot you can't tell us, but is there any light that you can shed on how this developed and how fast it went?
Well, the whole thing began shortly before the NHL draft last summer. So Ivan told Scott that his intentions were to join at the conclusion of his contract to join the Montreal Canadiens, or the team that was going to draft him. And then later, obviously, was the Montreal Canadiens. And much credit goes to Scott, his head coach, who basically did not pressure him. Unlike in some of the other instances in the KHL, they basically worked with him. They helped him to develop. I know that some of the fans perhaps did not like the ice time or what have you, but in the end, they did a phenomenal job developing him and getting him ready for the NHL. And the whole thing came together quickly within about 3 hours or so. We went from Ivan not coming to Ivan is coming, and let's put a contract together. So everything kind of came together on the napkin within a couple of hours yesterday.
Grant, if you want to talk about that in terms of what he just said, Demidov said even before the draft, whichever team drafts me, I want to go to them once my year is going to be finished in the KHL. And then as well, when he added, Ronenberg and Scott did a great job developing Demidov. I know some people are upset with the ice time in some games, but in the end, they did a great job. Now, I don't expect them to go on record and say they did a terrible job, but did we blow things out of proportion maybe when we looked at the ice time that he was getting or lack thereof and thought that Roman Ronenberg was a putz?
Habs fans would never do that, Tony. We're patient and with prospects.
But how about
well,
when he kept him out of the lineup and said, you know what, he's got to improve his physical game. He's going up against the big team and stuff like that, and we don't want to expose him.
Yeah.
Were they shielding him, or were they, in your opinion, without knowing, were they maybe probably upset that he was not going to be re-upping with Ska, or were they shielding him?
I've pondered it, and I think personally, what I think, I don't think Demidov ended the season that strong. He did not play that well the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I think it was a kick in the pants, to be honest with you. I think he was inspired. Rotenberg knows how good Demidov is. He's seen it during the season. The last 3 weeks, Demidov was I watched him all year. He was not as good, and I think it was he knows Demidov's so talented and determined and competitive, and I think it was well, he said he was going to be the 13th forward, but he never did. He never missed a game, right? He played in the first game, but he played 7 minutes. But I think it was let's get this guy motivated, and I'll show you. And he did come back, and he played 23 minutes, 27 minutes. He was on the third period in overtime constantly in games. And that tells me that Rotenberg was trying to kickstart him, because he knew that this kid, he was the best player on Ska. There wasn't anybody more talented.
And for anyone who follows prospects in the KHL, 18, 19, 20-year-old players,
typically,
it's very, they don't get a lot of ice time usually, or it's very erratic the way they're going to be used, and sometimes they're being sent back to the VHL or the MHL. It's kind of a mess when you think about it, and that's why some of them, like Chernyshov, who was drafted by the Sharks, he came to the OHL to get more ice time. So I don't think we should worry about all this. And I don't think what happened with Demidov is so uncommon with young Russian players. Yeah.
Well, Michkov he sat. He started last year with Ska. They played him 3 games, about 8 minutes, and he sat 5. And then they finally loaned him out to Sochi. Demidov never missed. I don't know that he was he a healthy scratch? If he was, it was once.
Maybe once.
Yeah, I think once. Yeah, he was a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
And there was another game where I think he actually sat on the bench the whole game. Remember that?
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a kid that was 18 at the start of the year and turned 19 to only be only sit 1 game all year in the KHL. You look at the stats for any of them, no 18, 19-year-old has ever played as many games as Demidov did this year. So, I mean, you watch him and you could see how good he was, and it was frustrating at times that he got the tough love that he did. But, he's not the first kid. Look at Michkov in the NHL this year. He's, Torch sat him 3 or 4 times and benched him a few times, and it's as Snake says, it's common in the KHL. It's uncommon for a player to play as much as Demidov did. So in the end, I think we were a little bit harsh on Rotenberg, me included, but I understand why he didn't play 18 minutes a game. They just don't. They don't do that. And in the KHL in Russia, and that, the veterans will get upset if you just hand it to a kid. They're a little selfish sometimes that way, and I think you got to be careful with that too. So, no,
guys, we'll take a couple of questions. Ali says, would you rest any players if the Canadiens end up clinching? Guys, I would rest Matheson and Savard for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
They could use maybe Josh Anderson.
Rest Josh Anderson for sure. I said something too on the Push Blue with the guys, and they had a really good point. I said I'd rest Nick Suzuki last game. And they looked at me and they said, well, He's got an Ironman record going.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So I thought about that one. That's a good point.
No.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Nick's not gonna. He hasn't missed a game in the NHL. He won't be sitting out.
Plus, he's got a chance to hit 90 points.
Yeah, no.
He
I
was
think Josh. I think Josh is. We're going to find out at the end of the year, just like with Shea Weber, all of the maladies that he's dealing with. He's not 100%, and he plays every game, and it's we don't know all the behind the scenes stuff, but he was their nominee for the Masterton.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's playing injured all year, and we'll find that out after the playoffs, I'm sure.
Back to Demidov for a second. Take a look at this piece of attire here. Huh? Take a look at this. Look at that, huh? Number 93, guys. Sickattire.com. Do we have the front of the t-shirt? Or is that the front?
When's the last time they won the cup, Tony?
1993.
There you go.
There's another one that says Demigod, by the way. Demigod is a shirt that we have, which is really, really nice. By the way,
there's a hidden message there. Believe in 93.
Believe in 93. Any chance that between now and the end of the year we could see 91, 92, and 93?
I was wondering about that too.
Eh?
Yeah. You never
Kapanen, centering Laine and Demidov. No one's talking about Kapanen centering Laine and Demidov because everyone's saying Newhook, right?
Well, and I agree with Max with saying like I'm not sold on Newhook as a second line center.
Neither am I.
That's that's the hole, right? Is Doc, like, say Doc's done for this? Did he have surgery again? Do you know?
He did, yeah.
Okay, so if they're playing in June,
he's done.
There's no chance that he's back.
Well, with the Canadiens medical team, no, it doesn't look that way. No, he definitely had surgery, yeah.
Because geez, it's too bad, but Doc, Laine, Demidov would has the potential to be a good line if Doc.
But you think they're going to start with? You think they're going to start with him, or they're going to go out and get a centerman in the offseason? I can't see them starting with Doc because when you have those kind of injuries and that surgry, it takes another year before you get 100%.
They're getting another center, but Doc, he's going to get another year, and if he bounces back, then you can never have too many centers. It's something that you see the Canadiens, how many times they've taken faceoffs and they put two centers out there, right? Well, ideally,
you have a wish list, Grant? You have a wish list of a centerman that you think could be attainable?
Sam Bennett, absolutely. I would love for them to sign him as a free agent. I think he's the perfect number 2 center. He would help Demidov adjust, not have to worry about defense as much. Protect him, all that stuff. Sam Bennett for me all the way would
be a dream because you don't have to give up any players to get him. Right. I mean, it's a double whammy, right? But
don't you aren't you concerned that you would probably ask for and get a 7-year contract?
No.
You would be okay signing Bennett for 7 years?
The cap's going up, and Montreal has so many good young players. There's going to be entry-level contracts that offset the big contracts. And Bennett is such a smart, competitive player. I think he remains good for 5 years at least. Okay. And you don't worry about the last 2 if you can get a player of that ilk that can help you win over the next 5 years.
So you wouldn't rather sign a guy for 1 or 2 years, I'm just throwing names like this, guys who are going to be UFAs, like a Granlund or a Duchesne for like 1 or 2 years instead?
No.
You'd rather go for Bennett for 7?
Yeah, because I think he helps you win a cup in the next 5 years, maybe. Okay.
But Snake, why would Granlund sign a 1-year deal? He's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, I know. But he's an older player. That's why I was asking. But,
right.
I was just throwing names like this about possibilities of getting a guy for 1 or 2 years and.
But then do you ever, what's the guarantee that in 3 years you're going to have the second line center?
Yeah. Unless this guy becomes Michael Hage becomes this guy, but we don't know.
Right, but there's no, it could be Beck could, Kapanen could, Hage could, but they may not either, right? Yeah. And again, you cannot have too many centers. They can always move to the wings.
Let's just say Lamoriello gets fired. New GM comes in. The Islanders want to blow it up. I take Bo Horvat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I go for him. Big, strong, good in the face-off circle.
Yeah. And the Canadiens have the assets to go for something like that. And Hughes has he has a history of not being afraid to make the bold move, and especially at draft time. And they've got the two first-round picks, and
yeah,
we'll see.
The only thing I'm worried about is that any team would be wise to ask for Michael Hage. And I really want to see Michael Hage in a Montreal Canadiens uniform 2-3 years down the line.
It's a great story, and but I think the Canadiens have a chance to really contend over the next 2 or 3 years. And if it's going to cost you something, whether it's a Logan Mailloux or Michael Hage or both, or Jaden Struble, or you make that move if you can get a Bo Horvat. I think you sacrifice something that you don't. You're going to have to sacrifice something you don't want to, or the other team.
Yeah, for sure. Snake, listen to this. Ivan Demidov playing for Marty St. Louis. This coming from his agent, Dan Milstein.
Montreal's got a great coach in Marty St. Louis there, and he's done an amazing job developing these kids. How excited are you for your client to be going into a coaching environment like that, where they're very willing to work and grow with the player?
It's awesome. I mean, Marty St. Louis, the Tampa Bay Lightning's royalty, a phenomenal coach, and I think Ivan could benefit from and will benefit from Marty's experience as a player, and what the adversity that he went through as a player. People don't talk about it, about his size and what he had to go through in order to make the NHL. And so I think he can relate to Ivan, and I'm hopeful that those two would hit off, and hopefully someday at the Hall of Fame acceptance speech, maybe Ivan can remember about his first NHL coach.
There you have it. We saw what Marty St. Louis has done with Cole Caulfield, guys, among others. Also made Nick Suzuki. You'd have to think. And once again, a lot of it comes down to the players too. And let's talk about Adam Nicholas and the Habs player development team and all that stuff. But offensive players get better here. They do. They do get better here. And some are on Slavkovsky. Slavkovsky's still young. Let's give it time. I think he'll be okay. But Suzuki's got so much better. Yeah. Marty St. Louis got so much. Cole Caulfield has got so much better that Ivan Demidov, I think he's going to love playing for Marty St. Louis. He's going to love playing for Marty St. Louis. Snake?
Yeah. I think it's a good situation for him. I mean, any great player will find his own way, to make points and go somewhere. But obviously, it's preferable to be in a situation like the one Demidov is in right now, rather than, let's say, Mishkov going to Philadelphia with Torts.
Yeah.
Guys, I just feel like lighting a fire now. Celebrini, 3 goals and 2 assists tonight. Is he back in the Calder race?
Stop.
Yeah. If he gets 3 goals and 2 assists his last 4 games, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, it's Hudson's. Any guy that you hear interviews with, well, I've got a vote, and Hudson. They're all
That's all saying Hudson. That's what we hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be surprised unless he just celebrates unconscious the last few games, but he's not playing any important games, and I think that's going to also be a factor in.
Probably, yeah.
Hudson, has he's got the top plus minus since the Four Nations in the whole league.
Mm-hmm.
A 160-pound rookie defenseman playing on his wrong side has the best plus minus since the Four Nations.
Yeah,
that's not just about his points. That's defense too.
Yeah.
His defensive game has improved so much since the start of the year. Remember, the naysayers would say, well, look at his plus minus. They can't say that anymore when he's got the best plus minus in the entire league for since the Four Nations, which playing on his offside as a rookie, 160-pound defenseman, is just crazy.
Yeah, and to beat all the records that he's beat already and will continue to beat. But look, I'll say this. I think Macklin Celebrini is absolutely unbelievable. He's 2.5 years younger than Lane Hudson. Like, we had this discussion probably a couple of months ago on the radio, and like it was like one of those crazy discussions where you're just having fun and you're just talking for the sake of talking instead of talking with a purpose. And you were like, who would you trade Lane Hudson for? And one of my colleagues at work, which I disagree with his trade proposal, but I admire his courage, said that he would trade Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield for Rasmus Dahlin. Okay. And I like, no, like I would not do that. But Rasmus Dahlin is amazing, but I wouldn't do that. But I wouldn't trade Lane Hudson for, now, once again, we're having fun. We're spitting here, right? I wouldn't trade Lane Hudson for many players in the National Hockey League.
Bedard?
I think I would for Celebrini. I think I would, right? Like a 2.5 years younger and a centerman that I think has 100-point potential. But you know what the problem is with making that trade? And once again, we're just talking here. We're having fun. We're pretending like we're three guys over at each other's house or having a coffee in a sports bar or whatever, and they're having a pint and we're just talking. You know what the problem is? You have a Lane Hudson, you trade him, you're going to end up spending I don't know how many years trying to get a Lane Hudson back somewhere, and you probably never will. That's the problem. Every team wants to have a guy like that, and you know what? They don't grow on trees. They don't. There's probably more chance of getting centerman. Number one or number two. Number one centerman. Probably more of a chance of getting a number one centerman than getting a guy with those characteristics like Lane Hudson.
Yeah, you could be right. Well, how many, there's Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, and, there aren't many like him.
That's it.
He's already looks like he's going to be better than Adam Fox. And
I was just going to say, I like him better than Adam Fox.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, was not very good. At the Four Nations face-off, and has been very inconsistent for the New York Rangers this year. Yeah. And Pierre Maguire said this before on the Sick podcast, and you know what? He feels strongly about it, and I agree with him. I think Lane Hudson is going to the Olympics next year, guys.
Oh, I hope Nick, both him and Nick. I think Nick has made the strong
I hope Caulfield goes too. I hope Caulfield goes too.
Yeah. I heard Craig Button saying he's doing a list of the top 50 players in the league, and for this season, he's got Nick 6th overall in the league. Yeah. So, there's no way. Him and Robert Thomas both have to, I think, be on the Olympic team next year unless something strange happens, but they both deserve. They've been two of the best players in the entire league in the last 3 months.
Snake, we'll finish it off with you. Who are you voting for the Frank Selke? Best defensive forward in the National Hockey League, 200-foot player.
Oh, my God.
I'm asking you if Suzuki's getting any votes. Would you give him a vote?
Somewhere. Yeah, somewhere in the top, probably top 4 or 5. Yeah. I don't know who I would vote for at number one, but...
Grant, who would you vote for?
Austin, no.
Draisaitl, maybe?
Not Austin Matthews.
Well, you just talked about Robert Thomas. It's another good pick.
Yeah, you know what? Robert Thomas is right up there. Barkov, obviously, every year he's awesome. Suzuki, Thomas, Barkov.
I think Suzuki could win the Lady Byng. Him or Braden Point.
Well,
it's all based on stats, basically points and penalty minutes. So
yeah, I know, and to win the Selke now, you have to get a certain amount of points too.
Also,
you know what? Like it changed from when Bob Gainey.
Yeah.
Well,
it was the Bob Gainey Award at the time. This
was.
Thing was created for him,
right? But but the criteria has changed with time. It's you got to get at least 50 points, or and I don't agree with that. You know, they have awards for the offensive guys. Let it truly be the best defensive player. Jake Evans would be in the running for me for best defensive player.
That's your
Selke,
point. Yeah.
you know, he's just with penalty killing this year. I don't know that there's been many better penalty killers than Jake Evans this year. He's just phenomenal.
We have a money question, I've been told. Do we have a money question? We do. Can we bring it up? We did. Ivan Rebakin with the Habs second first-round pick.
Yeah.
Pass. I wouldn't even take him in the first round. There are red flags with that guy. He's overweight. He's slow. His attitude stinks. I've watched games and all he does, he'll score a goal, but that's all he does.
Some people are overweight and actually very good at their job. As a matter of fact, some are actually overweight and actually the best at what they do.
They play in the NHL. Last night we had a podcast with an audience, and one of the things that was asked is, who are the Habs? Who could the Habs pick? You know, with 16 and 17 or 16 and 18, whatever. And I named a few players, and at some point I talked about Ryabkin, and I said, the way, like, if you really, really, really want to gamble, okay. But then I was asked, would you take him? And I said no.
I think he may not go in the first round.
Yeah.
I know a lot of NHL scouts are.
Because Matthias asked me yesterday, he said, look, he goes, let's say your job is on the line and you have to choose. Let's say after the Habs make the Calgary's pick, then they make their pick. Do you take him or not? And I said no.
If you're going to take a Russian, for me, it would be Prokhorov.
Yeah, the one you mentioned.
That kid is just a beast.
Yeah.
6'5", 210. You can't move him in front of the net. And I think they need another big guy in their top 9.
Yeah.
And you got 2 first-round picks. He'd be the guy I would target. And again, Bobrov will be all over that. He'll know the ins and outs in the kid.
Yeah.
And if he likes him, I think they should consider getting a running, like another Russian to help acclimate things for Demidov down the road. It wouldn't hurt, I think.
And would you take him before Carbonell?
Well, you know what? I was going to go there, guys.
Yes.
And by all means, you guys are the experts on this one. But with the Canadiens choosing 16 and 17, 16, I think is the Calgary pick, and maybe 17 there. I wouldn't be, if some of those kids from the Q are available, they've gone to see them quite a bit, supposedly, right?
Yeah. Carbonell did not have a good playoff.
Is there any chance that Desnoyers is available at 15, 16?
No.
No chance?
Not a chance.
He may go 3, Tony.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or it could be this year's Seneca. If he does well with Moncton at the Memorial Cup, if they reach a Memorial Cup and he plays well, he could be this year's Seneca.
All indications are he's going top 4, Tony.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the NHL.
He's really gone up. He's really gone up in the standings.
I've got him top 4, and I absolutely love him.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's not going to be there. No. There's a defenseman I like, Cameron Reed. Could be there at 18, 17, 18. I like him. Could be an option.
Yeah.
Those are the names, you know.
The names.
Carter Bear. I love Carter Bear, but I think he'll be gone. Even if he was injured, I think he's gone. He won't be there for the Habs.
Guys, once again, you follow it a lot closer than I do, so I'm not going to pretend to know it or follow it. But the names I was hearing, of course, top 3, 4, 5 were Schaefer, Misa, Hagens, the couple of players in Sweden. Who's it?
Rondell
and Eklund.
Yeah.
Right? They both play for Djurgårdens, right? They both play for the same team?
Yeah.
Porter Martone, has he dropped?
A little bit.
Wow.
He'll be top 6, 7 probably.
Probably. But I think Hagens and Martone have dropped a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Jake O'Brien went ahead of both of them, too. That's the other guy to keep an eye on.
Gentlemen,
I love Jake O'Brien. Love this guy.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been a lot of fun. We went a little overtime. Tomorrow night is once again going to be an off night for the Montreal Canadiens. But the good news is sometimes even when the Canadiens don't play, they end up being winners. They were winners tonight with the Philadelphia Flyers beating the New York Rangers. So Flyers do the Canadiens a favor. And you know what? It seems like everyone that's under the Canadiens, they just blow it. Every chance they get, they blow it. Things are looking well. The Montreal Canadiens have an 8-point lead for the wildcard spot, second wildcard spot. I will be in Ottawa on Friday night, by the way. We're going down with BPM Sports. We've got 4 buses full of people that are going. Grant, will you be at the game?
Yeah, that's the plan. If they let me in, I'm not buying a ticket, but yeah, no, I gave my request in. I said I plan on going to the game, so we'll see you in the press box, Tony.
We'll see you there. Well, I won't. I'll be in the seats, but
okay.
I will after the game. I will leave the seats to go in the press box to join Matthew O'Han and Pierre Maguire for a post-game show. And Excellent. Then, and you know what? If you're there and you want to jump in as well, we'll be all 4 of us, or we'll take turns. I'll do the first half an hour or whatever. You do the next half an hour, and we'll go. That's the way we'll do it. All right.
Sounds good.
Have a good one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Very much appreciated. For Shane Gomo on Master Control, special thanks to all of our sponsors. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. The Sick Podcast, weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBi.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.